Welcome to HQ Spotlight. It is our pick show involving every ranked team in college football. And boy, here's a look at Saturday. Now, we do have some Friday games that we'll talk about as well, but ranked on ranked games here in Week 14. You got the big one in the Big Ten, ACC bragging rights and implications down the line at noon Eastern, and then at 3:30 Eastern, SEC with Vanderbilt and Tennessee. This is our last full show, so it's important to remind everybody how well Danny and Chip have done, not only recently, but overall, especially Danny on a heater. He had like a nice little month run in October. Chip has come on strong to now be above 500. Both guys had a winning week last week. So with that, we welcome in one half of the Cover 3 podcast, Danny Kanell and Chip Patterson. I'm Tommy Tran. I mean, let's get into it in terms of last week was a bit of a lull. This week, anything but. Ohio State and Michigan, 10.5 with a total in the mid-40s. Danny, I'm going to give you first word. Obviously, we need to know if Tate and Smith are going to play, and I'm curious to get your thoughts of how much of that has impacted the handicap for this game for you.
Oh, I think it's definitely coming into play for me. I mean, if you knew those guys were 100%, I would still probably take Michigan, but I do wonder if I'd be getting more points if that was the scenario.
True.
Because I do wonder, Carnell Tate has not played the last 2 weeks. Jeremiah Smith did not play last week. He was seen limping on the sideline. Now, he told his buddy Caleb Downs, the player on the defense, they did a Downs podcast, and he said, I expect to play, but I kind of want to see it before it happens because I do think he is probably the best offensive weapon in the country, and I do think he impacts this game in a huge way. And if they're banged up or they're not 100%, I wonder how that impacts Julian Sand and his ability to throw the football through the air. Now, they might be able to run it too, but that is one of the question marks of this team. One of the potential weaknesses has been their offensive line. And you know that Michigan wants to make this game as ugly as possible. And you know it is on the road. It is Julian Sand's first time in this rivalry game. So with all those question marks, that is why I'm going to snatch up the Wolverines and those 10.5 points. It's over a key number. The total's low, so I think it'll be a lower scoring game. It could be a weather game. Please let it snow in the third and fourth quarter just for the TV viewing aspect of this. But I think all of that throws a wrench into things, not to mention the mental hurdle that Ohio State has to get through just to win the game, to break that 4-game losing streak. So I like the Wolverines here in those points.
Yeah, there have been a lot of human studies on different colors and what it does to the human mind. And I don't know what it is about maize and blue, boys, but it makes Ryan Day think he has to play man ball. We've just got to out-physical Michigan. It's the only way we can beat them. And it cost them last year. It cost them big time, obviously. They went on to win the national championship, but it cost them at least that game and that moment in this rivalry to allow the Wolverines to get a 4th straight win. But we've lost a lot off that last team. So let's look at what this team has done, specifically away from the horseshoe. 4 times they have played true road games this year, and 4 times the total has gone under. You mentioned Julian saying, I do think that this is a don't make a mistake game. I think this is a run the daggum football game. I think this is a game where Ryan Day and Ohio State is more than happy to play field position. So that's why for me, I'm going to be tackling the total here. I will go under that low total of 44.5.
Okay, so Michigan and the points and the under, just to give an idea with the injuries too. Against Rutgers for Ohio State, it was the Max Clare game and Bo Jackson game. So you would think if those receivers were not going to be available, maybe they would have been featured maybe a little bit more in the previous game. That's just my take, by the way. And so I think those guys, one if not both, are going to play in that one.
And good news for Michigan, Jordan Marshall, who with Justice Haynes out, he has been the next man up. Sharon Moore earlier this week said he expects Jordan Marshall to play. And I would expect him to get 25, 30 carries in this game. No matter how it's going, they will be committed to the run.
Good point there. ACC now with Miami in the rankings. They continue to trend upward, but again, they don't control their fate when it comes to the Big Ten, or rather ACC title game. Pittsburgh is ranked, of course, with their win last week. So we've got a 6.5-point spread on the road for the Canes with a total of 49.5. Chip, you and DK on the same side, lay in the points.
Two things here. Number one, I do think that Miami is going to have an ability to disrupt Mason Heinschel in a way that Georgia Tech had no chance. to do so. I think that what we saw from that defensive front in terms of being able to rise up and make sure that they won the game against Virginia Tech, avoided any kind of trip-ups in Blacksburg, kind of shows you what the DNA is here to win. Now, look, Carson Beck has to avoid the back-breaking turnovers. I realize that is my bet. That is my gamble, because if Carson Beck does not turn it over, then I do think that Miami could win. Pitt has been playing through just sort of an absolute gauntlet of these high-stakes games. And as much as Pat Narduzzi wants to talk about how he didn't care if Notre Dame put 100 on him because all he wanted to do was beat Georgia Tech and beat Miami, give themselves a shot at the ACC title, I know that the players on that team, they still had to play Notre Dame. And the players on that team, they still had to go and bring all that energy. And in a classic reload the musket situation, I just wonder if Pitt's going to be able to be right at the tippy top of its game, particularly in the trenches. Give me the Hurricanes to get the rare November road win.
I'm on the same page. You guys remember the name Ruben Bain, who was a hot name as a Heisman Trophy winner? Well, Carson Beck was throwing interceptions, but Ruben Bain has not dropped off that much. He is still an incredible player. Hakeem Mesidor on the other side. That's the similarity I think you could see between what Notre Dame did at Pitt a couple of weeks ago and what Miami could do. Is I think Mason Heichel will be running for his life a lot of the game. And for the first time, and maybe the only time this season, we saw Mason Heichel impacted as the quarterback at Pitt, where he had the pick six. He did not look very comfortable throughout most of that game. I don't think he feels very comfortable in this one. And I think Miami has the edge on both the defensive and the offensive lines, where I think you might be a little bit nervous. And I hear you, Chip, saying, man, what version of Carson Beck are you going to get? Well, there's one way to do that. Take the ball out of his hands and run the football with those running back crew that they've got going for the Miami Hurricanes. So I think Miami controls the line of scrimmage. And if there's a chance to get a late score, you know they're going to take it. They did it against Virginia Tech.
Right.
I think they do it, so I like Miami to win and cover.
Yeah, they added margin against the Hokies last week to make it look cosmetically better. Lastly, we got Vandy and Tennessee. Short number, inside of a field goal, 2.5 with a sky-high total in the mid-60s. You guys are going head-to-head in this one, DK. Which side are you on?
As much as I love the Diego Pavia story and his Heisman run and seeing him on TikTok dancing around with the Heisman pose, this is where the Heisman campaign comes to an end. Tennessee at home, I do think they're really good, but I don't even know if it's that side of the ball that concerns me. I think they'll be able to contain Diego Pavia, but the defense, I think, is the area that should be able to step up. And I do think that Tennessee's offense is the difference in this game. Joey Aguilar and company able to spread the field, put up big numbers. They've been able to do that most of the time. We saw Vanderbilt get carved up by Texas, by Auburn. I think you could see a similar situation here. And unlike those games, I don't think Vanderbilt can get in that scoring kind of shootout type of game and go toe-to-toe. So I like Tennessee to win.
I mean, any time that you can get the momentum off beating New Mexico State and a dead Florida team, clearly Tennessee is playing like one of the 25 best teams in the country. Am I right? No. Vanderbilt brings the complete understanding of what's at stake here. What's at stake? 10-win season. That means something to the Vanderbilt football program. What's at stake? Even being in the mix, even having your name on the table of potential college football playoff conversations. And what's at stake? Yeah, you might be turned off by the TikTok dancing, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of Heisman Trophy voters are undecided right now, and Diego Pavia does have a chance to be able to make a statement in this game. I like Vanderbilt. Been riding them a lot all year. They've been great against the spread team. Why stop now? Anchor down. Let's go Doors. Okay,
last game is a head-to-head between DK and Chip. Hitting a break here on the show. When we come back, Georgia will not have to play at Bobby Dodd when they take on Georgia Tech this week. It'll be the friendly confines of Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Welcome back to the show. We certainly hope everyone will have a happy Thanksgiving. Then on Black Friday, college football takes over. We've got 3 ranked-on-ranked games, including the one in Atlanta where Georgia won't have to go to Bobby Dodd. It'll be at the friendly confines of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the Dogs and Kirby Smart are well-versed in playing inside that venue. All right, back here with DK and Chip. So it's 13.5 in terms of Georgia and Georgia Tech. Remember when the Yellow Jackets beat Clemson? This was like a heightened game. Man, could they run the table when they get to Georgia at the end of the year? They've hiccuped a couple times with losses, still a lot in front of them to play. But Danny, in terms of what you're anticipating in this game, you anticipate lots of points?
I do. Haynes King, there's not a player maybe all season long that I felt worse for than last week against Pitt when they had a chance to cut the lead to 7 and they're going in. He throws a 100-yard pick six going the other way. It was great defense. He clearly didn't see the defender. And you could just tell he had put everything on the team as he's done all season long. And it was one of those plays that felt like it cost the chance for a great comeback for Georgia Tech. That being said, Haynes King is one of the fiercest competitors that's out there in the country, and I would expect him once again to go out and do very much like he did last year. Buster Faulkner, by the way, the offensive coordinator at Georgia Tech, is one of the best at scheming up plays. So I do think Georgia Tech will score some points. That's the good news for Georgia Tech fans. The bad news is that Georgia Tech is going to give up a lot of points as well, as they've done all season long, to teams that are not as good offensively as Georgia. Gunnar Stockton, I think he's been underappreciated as one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC in the entire country. Every time they play a worthy opponent, it feels like he just chalks up 4 touchdown passes and plays pretty close to perfect. And even in the Alabama loss, he had a wide open wide receiver that the pass was dropped, or else he might have won that game. So I do think Georgia scores at will, but I also think Georgia Tech does too. So I like over the total.
Yeah, this Georgia offense went through a little bit of a swoon in the middle of the season. They had injuries along the offensive line, but, man, they certainly have hit their stride in a big way. They put up 35-plus points in 5 out of their last 7 games. And I wonder if the memories, nay, the nightmares of having to go through overtime after overtime after overtime might actually introduce some real hate into clean, old-fashioned hate. And so I'm going to say that Georgia pours on a little bit extra, scores even more than they did against Charlotte, and they get over 37.5.
All right, you guys are kind of on the same page. And by the way, we mentioned the change of venue. This is part of Georgia Tech's 6-year deal with Mercedes-Benz. So have at least one home game. Apparently they make $10 million in this game, 5 times more than they make at Bobby Dodd. Let's get to
Give it to Brent Key.
Yeah.
Let's go to the SEC, where we've got Texas A&M and Texas. Short number, total at 51.5. So Danny likes A&M in this game to put the coffin in the Longhorns here. But, Chip, I'm going to give you first word. Did you have a lean on the spread, and why do you like the total better today, this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, lean is that Texas gets it done, but a lot of that is vibes, and whatever could create the biggest headache possible would, and that would be a 9-3 Texas team with a win against Texas A&M. That's just me hedging my own brain exercises that we're going to have to do if that happens, because what I see this game is a true coin flip. What I see in this game is 2 quarterbacks in Marcel Reed and Arch Manning that are going to be able to lead multiple scoring drives. I think that these 2 teams are going to get in and throw some haymakers. I mean, Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, Ryan Wingo, Contravion Wisner. There are a lot of players that are just one cut from being able to be running free for a 40-yard touchdown. I see points in this game. I understand we were 17-7 1 year ago, but that is not the Texas A&M defense that we have right now, and that is not the Texas defense that we have seen over the course of the last 3-4 weeks. So I think that Texas A&M will be able to score. I think that Texas will scheme up enough explosive plays that this one ends up going over the total. 51.5, just a little bit too low.
This is going to be a really fun game. I think we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams, and I think probably more people want to learn about Texas A&M. When you look at their schedule and you look for quality wins, they're not exactly that many. Really, Notre Dame, that huge win early in the season, was by far their most impressive win. Now they've got an opportunity to do it on the road against a rival and have some revenge from last year, and I think they get it. I do think they win this game. I trust the completeness of this Aggies team more than I trust Texas. Texas has at times shown some firepower offensively. They've been a little bit inconsistent. And I do trust Marcel Reed a little bit more than I trust Arch Manning. And I mentioned the different ways to win. Texas defense, which we were raving about earlier this season, the better teams they've faced, they've given up some points to. And I think Texas A&M will be able to score. So to Chip's point, I trust that aspect. What I'm very curious to see is Arch Manning, how he does against this Texas A&M defense with Cassius Howell and a crew that is number 2 in the country in sacks. And that is one area where Arch Manning, and I thought this would happen all season, I thought he would struggle when he faces pressure. And I think that could continue again. But I also do like Chip's play as well, because I do like Sark is going to figure this out. Arch, even if he does play poorly, does get sacked, I think they'll figure out he can run, he can extend plays. I think he can make some big plays. But over the course of a 60-minute game, a high-possession game, I trust Texas A&M a little bit more.
Yeah, what we've seen is Arch has been generally better at home, which is good news if you're a Texas fan. The bad news is what you guys both hinted at, which is this Longhorn defense, which has been elite top tier. They've given up at least 30 the last 4 games, so that is certainly a good thing if you're an Aggies backer there. Let's get to Arizona and Arizona State duel in the desert. 2.5 with a total at 48.5, and obviously doesn't have a ton of Big 12 implications. There's a lot more teams certainly ahead of there. Danny, what are you thinking about this game when it comes to Friday night?
So Arizona's defense, probably underappreciated, underrated. They've been probably one of the better storylines, in the Big 12 this year, and a big reason why Brent Brennan's squad is in the top 25 and why this is a top 25 matchup. So I think Jeff Sims, as much as Kenny Dillingham has done a great job generating some offense with a journeyman quarterback, I think that could come to a stop. And then Arizona State, the defensive there, I think they'll play pretty good at home. A home game, the crowd will get into it. I think both these teams, especially that you're adding the ranking to it, where we saw the committee have both of these teams ranked last night, I think this will be a lower scoring affair. I would lean towards Arizona State as the home underdog in a rivalry game, but ultimately I think defenses shine, so I'll go under.
You know, it was so interesting. I just ran the numbers for what could get Arizona State in. They all involve UCF beating BYU. So no thank you. Tommy's right. I don't think that we're going to be dealing with as many Big 12 title implications here. I'm going to go with Arizona. This opened around Pick'em. Market moved it in Arizona's favor. I generally agree with the move. It is not my most confident play. I think that if you told me Kenny Dillingham and Jeff Sims, they cooked up an amazing environment and a rivalry win, and he had them all ready to go because they're all competitors and they don't do TikTok, I would believe every second of it. But in terms of the team that's on the field, I think Arizona has been playing closer to its best football than Arizona State has on both sides of the ball. Wildcats defense especially has been impressive. So I'm going to go with Brent Brennan in Arizona, but true toss-up coin flip game. This one's just a lean for me.
Okay, so 3 ranked-unranked games on Friday. We still have a lot more to tackle in terms of the Friday slate here on the show. When we come back, we'll talk about Ole Miss, which actually dropped a spot in the latest CFP rankings. Egg Bowl on deck at Hail State with a spread of just 7.5. Welcome back to the show. Got a handful of games to tackle in this block, which includes Mississippi and Mississippi State. And I mentioned in the tease a spread of just 7.5, which we'll dive into here with a total in the low 60s. I know it's a rivalry game, so I understand, and we're going to see that in some other scenarios too. But the Lane Kiffin stuff continues to fascinate me, Danny, which is all the things, of course, with him potentially taking other jobs, but then also talk about what the Ole Miss team would be if he leaves. Would they still be considered a CFP team? Where did you guys land when you guys talked about it on the Cover 3?
So, it was interesting. Hunter Yurachek did address this last night, and he said, it would not be the same. Because everybody wants to compare it to Florida State when Jordan Travis was out. Well, Hunter Yurachek referenced that with that situation, you saw Florida State without Jordan Travis, and I still think it was wrong, it was a travesty, but at least they had a data point. He said they would not have a data point, so they really wouldn't know, almost insinuating that it would not impact Ole Miss's future in the playoff, which I think that would be such an egregious misstep for the committee. If Lane Kiffin is gone, to harm and to penalize Ole Miss's football team, the guys that are actually on the field making the plays, I think that would be absolutely ridiculous, and I hope the committee doesn't do that. I don't think they will, because the other thing to point out is Lane Kiffin is not even the play caller. He is the head of the program. He's a great offensive mind, but Charlie Weiss is calling the offensive plays. Pete Golding is calling the defensive plays. So the guys that are actually making the play calls on the field would still be there, you would think. So I don't think it should impact Ole Miss's future in the playoffs. If they lose, all bets are off the table. I think they have to win this game to get into the playoff. I don't think it matters who's coaching. And if they win and they try to dock them because Lane Kiffin potentially isn't there, I think that'd be ridiculous.
Tommy, will you look to make sure that he doesn't have one of them Lane Kiffin buzzers on, one of them Ole Miss buzzers on? Because they got to him, Tommy. They got to Danny. This is the messaging that Ole Miss is already getting out. Charlie Weiss Jr. named a Broyles Award nominee. And what do we see? A lot of big social media posts and press releases celebrating Charlie Weiss Jr. and all the things that he does, which are totally all him and definitely not Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss is already preparing the messaging to make sure that it is driven home to the college football public and committee members specifically that if Lane Kiffin's not around, Ole Miss is still a playoff team. Now, that could just be a little bit of damage and control. Maybe they do think that there's a potential that Lane Kiffin sticks with the team, but I have been very, very aware of the way that Ole Miss has been handling the messaging around this, which is to try and prepare the perception as though this team can still be playoff caliber. Now, is that intellectually honest? I'll leave that for you to decide, but I definitely think that that is the conversation that we'll be having, is that number one, sure, there's the Jordan Travis comparison that doesn't fit, but then number two, as Danny, who has received the propaganda and spewed it here, this is an Ole Miss team that still has a lot more pieces than Lane Kiffin.
So getting back to the game, both of you guys have avoided the spread, which is at 7.5, going head-to-head with the total. So over 62.5. You think pace of play is going to be up in this game, DK?
I do. I know Jeff Levy wants to go fast, and I think Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss and that Mississippi offense will be able to score on Mississippi State's defense, which has been very much a liability. And Mississippi State, I referenced Jeff Levy. They got their first SEC win. They could really go out with a huge, bang to end the season, carry some momentum into the next one. It's in Starkville. It's the Egg Bowl. This game kind of gets wild. I would lean towards Mississippi State with the points, especially since it is over a touchdown. But why mess with that when I think this is going to be an up and down field, track meet type of game? I'm going to go over the 62.5.
Just 3 games all season would have gone over this total, even as explosive as that Ole Miss offense has been. I see the run game, which I do agree with Danny, is going to be successful. I see it as a way of limiting the number of possessions that Mississippi State has. I see it as a way of taking the cowbells and the home crowd out of it for Mississippi State. Long, plotting drives are ways that you can limit your chances of getting upset. So I actually think this number is a little bit too high for the last game of the season with the putrid vibes that abound this matchup. So I'm going to go under the total.
All right, head-to-head there, we do have number 13, Utah at Kansas. Total just under 60. Now, this is a game that actually opened up 12.5, now been bet down to 11.5. So there's a bit of money on the Hawks. Chip Patterson, though, you like the Utes on the road in this scenario.
Give me the chip line value. I'll take 12.5. Utah's got their butt-kicking boots on. Look, the Utes are in a position after escaping with their life against Kansas State to be able to take on a Jayhawks team that has been absolutely lost. Jalen Daniels gets banged up in the game last week. The disappointment just overflows. Now, would it surprise me if Lance Leipold's able to coach him up for one big win at home at the end of the season, even when the rest of the year is lost? Like, look, Lance Leipold's a great coach, but I'm not going to wish cast that into existence when I'm going to take what I believe is going to be a Utah offense that should mow down this Kansas defense. So, yeah, with style points necessary for their CFP future, I'll take Utah and I'll lay the double digits.
Yeah, I would lean towards Utah too, and it's interesting because I do trust their offense more.
Which we saw in that graphic, by the way.
Which we saw in that graphic, and Kansas's defense has not been great. But I also don't trust the defense maybe as much as we thought earlier in the season, as we saw them leaking oil last week against Kansas State. Chip mentioned that game. I think Kansas, even potentially with Jalen Daniels, banged up, I trust them to put some points up on Utah. It is at home, so I'll go over the 59.5.
All right, let's go to Indiana, north of 4 touchdowns against Purdue. It is on the road, so 28 and a hook. You guys both like the Boilermakers. Chip, is it a key number? Is it anything other than that? Take me through the handicap for you, my man.
So that first half number was too little, right? I mean, there is 100% a chance that they come out there and they put the Boilermakers in a body bag early. But over 60 minutes, 4 of them quarters, do I think that Purdue is still going to be fighting? You're absolutely right, I do. I think Barry Odom is going to have this group playing at home in front of that big old drum. I mean, they are truly playing for pride, and Indiana does have to play a little bit to try and preserve the very best of their squad. We know Elijah Surratt, the star wide receiver, is expected to be back. The other positions getting healthier as well. I don't know if they want to test them deep into this game, so maybe it's a frisky start. Maybe it's a backdoor cover. Yes, it is a key number, Tommy, but I will take Purdue plus 28.5.
Yeah, very much same line of thinking. I think Purdue views this as a potential Super Bowl. They only have this their last game. They have an opportunity to potentially ruin the season for a rival. But also, Indiana coming off a bye, it's hard to get ramped up again sometimes, back to full-speed football. I think they could start a little bit sluggish. And then in the second half, I could see Alberto Mendoza come in the game, get him comfortable, develop him for next year. You get Fernando his stats early in the game, which I think they would get probably midway through the third quarter. And if it's comfortable, they do have a massive matchup that they want to be 100% for in the Big Ten championship game. So this to me is about the enormity of the number. It's at Purdue, what Purdue has at stake, what they potentially could do, pulling off an upset, which I don't think is possible. But I do think you get their best effort all the way throughout. In Indiana, a little bit more in cruise control, realizing we just need to win. We don't need style points. We need to stay healthy. I think they take out a lot of their starters, so I'll take the big number.
Get in, get out, getting ready for the Big Ten championship game. We are halfway through our show here on HQ Spotlight. When we return, Oregon was the team that leapfrogged Ole Miss in the rankings. Cascade clash in the Pacific Northwest with Ducks Huskies next. All right, welcome back to the show. Let's tackle some more games, getting back to Saturday's slate. Texas Tech minus 23.5. So they're favored by 3 touchdowns and then some at West Virginia with a total of 53 and a hook. I was just looking during the break about the West Virginia team total. 14.5 is what some sports books have it at. I only bring that up because both of you guys think it's going to be an under game. Maybe not surprising given that Red Raider defense, Chip Patterson.
Yeah, I looked at the 14.5 as well. It is only my respect for Rich Rodriguez not to think that they could get potentially a 17 in there. But Texas Tech also, the way that it handles its business is almost like an SEC team from the mid-2010s. This is a defense that, as you can see right here, is one of the best in the country. They allow their playmakers on the outside, whether it be David Bailey, whether it be Romello Height, or whether it be Jacob Rodriguez from the linebacker position. They just let those guys make life absolute hell for the opposing offense. And so they don't even really have to take risks offensively. We know that they've been banged up at the quarterback position. Baron Morton is always one bad tackle away from getting hurt again, which means you're down to QB3. So I think a more conservative offensive approach on the road, don't make a mistake, is more than enough because defensively, I think that they are going to be tone setters there for the Red Raiders. So I like going under the total.
There's the old saying that defense wins championships. You know what else defense does? It travels. And that's where I think this defense travels to Morgantown, and I do think they have a lot of success against West Virginia, shutting down an offense which has been a little bit volatile all season long. And I think for all the points that Chip made are pretty much echoing exactly my same thought process. David Bailey's been a beast getting after the quarterback, one of the top sackers in the entire country, the whole crew. There is one aspect that would potentially make me nervous about this. You mentioned Jacob Rodriguez, who has scored a touchdown. But like the Heisman campaign, I think that's kind of been put to bed a little bit as he's fallen out there. So, and I don't know if you want to risk putting him out there to run a touchdown in potentially in this game and risk losing him for the Big 12 championship game. So even that, and I loved it when they did that. I don't know if you're going to roll him out there and risk him to injury late in this game to potentially get another touchdown, which might get a little bit closer to the total. But I like the under all day long.
Okay. Texas Tech heavily invested in said defense, and it certainly paid off so far this year en route to what we think will be a Big 12 championship game. We'll talk about BYU next, which will be a team that potentially could face Texas Tech down the road. First things first, though, is UCF. So it's a spread of 17.5 with a total at 47 and a hook. Chip, interesting. I saw your pick because, look, UCF's offense has a lot left to be desired so far this year. So a fade for you given that particular unit in this game.
And Tommy, you're one of the best because you understand how these things connect, right? I tell you that I'm not taking West Virginia team total 14.5 under because they are at home and they've got Rich Rodriguez. And then we've got UCF where I am taking team total under 14.5 because I do not trust this UCF offense. And in particular, I do not trust this UCF offense away from home. So again, West Virginia's playing at home. I think that Scotty Fox could scheme something up. UCF playing away from home in Provo against this BYU defense, who I don't necessarily have on the same level as Texas Tech, but equally respectable, especially when they are playing there in Lavelle Edwards Stadium. So for this one, I don't want to have to worry about whether BYU is just going to be running the football and breaking loose. I mean, they could run halfback dive and all of a sudden still rip it off for 60 yards if UCF lets go of the rope, but I really don't see the Knights being able to score here, so I'll go UCF team total under 14.5.
Yeah, UCF, the game that comes to mind for me was when they traveled to Lubbock a few weeks ago, and they were on the road against another really good defense, and they lost 48-9. Now, I don't know if BYU lights up the scoreboard the way that Texas Tech did. They're a different offense. They are more run-based. Blair Bachmeier's been good, but I don't think he's as much of a big play threat. But I think this is a pretty much controlled, dominant win for BYU, so I'll lay the 17.5.
Okay. DK sounding like he's laying it with confidence with that 17.5 against UCF. Let's get to our game on CBS Big Time, which is going to be Oregon and Washington. We did see the Ducks and the Trojans last week. 6.5 is the spread at Husky Stadium with a total at 51 and a hook. Chip's got a total play, but Danny, you got a spread play? Are the Ducks peaking at the right time?
I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of this game. I think even some Oregon Duck fans might be afraid. Coming off an emotional win against USC, that was huge, dominant there in the second half. I think they'll still be able to go to Seattle and knock off Washington, and I think they have to. When you look at the college football playoff, the way it is unfolding, some people think, oh, they can lose this game and they'll still be fine. I don't think that is the case. I think if they lose this game, they are very much in doubt. And knowing that, I think Dan Lanning will have this team in a frenzy, just like he does almost every week. And the good news is, I know there's some question marks about the health, but Kenyon Sadiq has been an absolute weapon for the Oregon Ducks. Dante Moore has continually improved throughout the whole season, and Oregon's defense is probably one that doesn't get enough credit too. So I think Oregon, realizing they're on the cusp of getting back to the college football playoff and potentially getting that taste of what happened against Ohio State out of their mouth, I think they close out strong. And just a little point, we've talked all about coaching distractions. Where are coaches' minds at this time? Jed Fish, a lot of this does hinge on Lane Kiffin. Where does he end up? But if he stays at Ole Miss or goes to LSU, that Florida job is open. And I do think that is a place that Jed Fish has his eyes on. I wonder how that impacts this Washington team. So I'll go ahead and lay it with the Ducks.
Love that you gave a shout out to Oregon's defense there. All things considered, holding USC to 27 points was a really good performance by that group. I thought they did a good job up front. That defensive line in particular, Amari Washington, Bear Alexander, Mateo Uyunglele on the outside, they've become a real force. They're playing at a high level. It's what has Tosh Lupoy, the defensive coordinator, getting an endorsement from Dan Lanning for head coaching jobs. I think that there's also, like you mentioned, the injury issues for Oregon. They've become more of a ground and pound team, a little bit less of having Dante Moore pick apart a defense. Then we get to the Washington side of things. I do think playing at Husky Stadium is going to be a little bit tough as we've had to move around pieces on the offensive line. Are we going to have maybe some procedural penalties? All things that are going into my endorsement of the under. But here's the real cherry on top. Something that I discovered earlier this week. Oregon is 14th in the Big Ten in red zone percentage. Again, that is not 14th in the country out of 136 FBS teams, 14th out of 18 teams in their red zone scoring percentage. They just get in those tight spaces, and especially without those difference makers on the outside, it gets a little bit difficult. I'm going to say we see a lot of field goals with Oregon and Washington, and that leads to a lower scoring game under 51.5.
So let's end with Oklahoma hosting LSU. The spread is 10.5. And this total is like an Iowa total or an old Steelers-Ravens NFL total of like the mid-30s, which is kind of crazy. Danny's got to play in the total, but Chip, you're grabbing the points, taking LSU at 10.5.
Yeah, first of all, it's Crimson and Cream, Iowa. This is what we have declared Oklahoma to be. This is who they are. They are bringing Iowa to the SEC, and we appreciate them for it. I am going to grab LSU. It is not just big dog low total, though that certainly fits. I was looking at the projected score based on these lines, somewhere around 24-13, and I just think that LSU has a few too many athletes for me to think that they're not going to be able to pop something. Might be a defensive score, special teams, but any one touchdown that is not an offensive drive ending in the end zone could make this an easier cover than it is at the beginning of the game. So with the general athleticism of the roster, with the chaos that is rivalry weekend, I'll take LSU plus 10 and a hook.
You know, the total is really low, 36.5. And I'm sure most people are like, oh, they have to score more than that. I mean, these two teams, they were teams that had high expectations. You know, they have had quarterbacks that had really massive expectations. LSU's not even playing theirs. But I want to read you something. Last week at the second half, once Oklahoma took the lead against Missouri, their drive chart, first drive, field goal, 8 plays, 3 minutes. Next drive, 7 plays, punt. Next drive, 3 plays, punt. Next drive, 5 plays, punt. Next play, 4 plays, punt. Next drive, 3 plays, punt. Next drive, 8 plays, punt. That is 6 drives where they ended in punts once they got the lead. As soon as they get the lead, I think they have been coached up. Do not screw it up because that defense is not going to get scored on. I could see a 17-10 type game, maybe 17-14. I kind of like Chip's lean with LSU in those points, but I think Oklahoma's defense is good enough, and I don't trust their offense to score against Blake Baker's defense, which I think might be better than Missouri's last week.
I know we watched because go ahead, Chip, quickly.
This game had Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and 90 points 6 years ago. Are you kidding me? How far we've come.
I was going to say, so far removed. This is the one where you bet we don't even watch. Like, even us, we don't even watch.
Exactly.
Like, just let it go and see the results as they may and tally it at the end. Okay, we're up against a break here. We got to get going. But Iron Bowl has Alabama with a lot to gain, a lot to lose, and we'll revisit how tough it's been for them to play Jordan-Hare. Let's go ACC, Virginia Tech and Virginia. The question is, will UVA slip up in this opportunity, laying 9.5? And Danny, your answer is no.
No, I know there's some speculation. Rivalry game, you know, you've got a tough spot to play in here. They lost their best linebacker, Cam Robinson, to an ACL injury, which I hate to see. But I do trust Virginia. They control their own destiny to get to the ACC championship game. I do think they close it out. I think Virginia Tech might have given their best punch that first game with James Franklin back. Now you got Virginia, a hot team. I think they're going to win and win comfortably.
I'm going to be going over the total here. You mentioned Cam Robinson being out. I think that does help out Kyron Drones and the rest of the Virginia Tech offense to be able to score some points. But a lot of this was powered by my breakdown of what Chandler Morris can do against a woeful pass defense for Virginia Tech. And so I looked at Virginia team total over, but with their own defensive injuries, I'll just go ahead and take the full game. So we'll go full game over 52.5.
Iron Bowl is up next. DeBoer's first roadie, but whether it's DeBoer or not, it has been tough for Alabama to go away from Tuscaloosa to either lose or if they win, it's awfully close. So again, 5.5 is the number, kind of in limbo there, no man's land. 46.5. Chip's got a first half play, but Danny, you're grabbing the points with the Tigers.
Heck yeah, a home underdog on rivalry weekend. It's got an offense kind of found some life since they switched. Ashton Daniels will get the start, but watch out for Deuce Knight. I think they should have a package for him. He showcased his rushing ability last week against Mercer, so I think this is kind of a headache game for Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Alabama. And that Auburn defense is really good, and Ty Simpson has come back to reality a little bit as he's played against some of those tougher teams. I do think the environment will be electric, too. It's going to be loud. The Auburn's going to be looking to ruin Alabama's playoff hope, so I'll take those 5.5 points.
Yeah, all week long on the Cover 3 podcast, breaking down this game, we've been talking about don't make a mistake. And I think that's what Alabama is going to be in at the beginning of this game. Don't screw it up mode. And sometimes don't screw it up mode is going to be a little bit more conservative. It's going to be less risk-taking. It is going to be not creating necessarily the kind of offensive fireworks that you might otherwise see. We haven't seen many offensive fireworks from Auburn in general this season. Their defensive excellence, their offensive struggles. I just think that this game starts a little bit cagey, starts a little bit tight, so I'll go first half under 23.5.
We can be quick on Battle of L.A., Chip Patterson, UCLA, USC.
UCLA-DEAD. We will see the Trojans be able to score at will. Team total over 41.5.
Emotional loss last week for USC. UCLA has not shown much fight, but this is a rivalry game, and Lincoln Riley's tired of hearing stupid questions. That's too many points for me in a rivalry game. USC wins, but by 3 touchdowns or less.
Yeah, get that hook there. All right, break time, home stretch here on the show. We've got a handful of games left to go. SMU can make the CFP in both of its first 2 years in the ACC. Only thing standing in their way is a Cal team that fired their coach this week. Last 3 games, we got Charlotte 29.5 against Tulane. We've established Charlotte as a bad FBS team here, Danny, but sometimes the number's just too good.
That's pretty much all this is right here. I mean, you're talking over 4 touchdowns. Tulane is really good. Also, some questions about the head coach. What's going to happen with John Sumrall? I'll take the 49ers and all those points.
No, we go under. Why? Why do we need to score a lot of points in this game? 35-3 is what Georgia did. 35-3 is what Tulane can do. Under the total, too many daggone points.
SMU just under 2 touchdown favorites at Cal, which showed Justin Wilcox the door. Danny, what's the play for you here?
I want to root for my guy, Nick Rolovich. He was a teammate with me in the Denver Broncos. He's the interim coach for Cal. He's got a talented young quarterback. But I do wonder the psyche of this team. And on the flip side, SMU, similar to my Virginia play, controlling their own destiny, realizing what's at stake, getting the ACC title, another playoff appearance for Rhett Lashley and company. Their defense is really good, too. 6th in the country in sacks. Kevin Jennings is finally getting healthier, so he's leading that offense. I'll lay him with SMU.
Spot on with that Kevin Jennings point, Danny. I thought that he was such a warrior throughout the middle part of the season, but you did not hear me wanting to bet on a warrior who is obviously limited. I think that SMU is actually rounded through the injury woes. They're playing with some confidence. I think they take care of business. I'll lay the 13.5.
And last but not least, Cal lost to Stanford. They're back at the farm taking on Notre Dame, which absolutely blitzed Syracuse by 63. Again, the theme has been Notre Dame has won. They won with margin. They won with style points. But laying 32.5 is always going to be a tough task. You guys are both actually grabbing the points with the Cardinal, Chip. I'm curious as to why.
Well, because when you start with the 32-point lead, Tommy, all you got to do is defend the 32-point lead. So I happen to think that this Stanford team, which is still fighting, which certainly ain't quit, and which just got themselves that big old rivalry trophy in the game, in the big game, I think Stanford comes out and causes enough problems. I don't know if it'll be early. I don't know if it'll be late. But 32 is a big number to cover with a 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff for a Notre Dame team that really just needs to win.
Yeah, I mean, 35-3 feels like a pretty impressive resume building, like controlling win. But guess what? That wouldn't be enough to cover that point spread. I'm with Chip here. You got Andrew Luck out there on the sideline giving interviews, calling out for the ball, and then watching a fumble, scoop, and score go the other way. I don't know if we're going to see that again, but I do think you'll see Stanford give a good effort. Notre Dame's traveling out west to Palo Alto for a late night game. What could go wrong? I don't think Notre Dame gets beat, but I do think this is one where Stanford could keep it close enough inside that number, so I'll take it. It's way too big a number.
Notre Dame due for a quote-unquote dud. We've got about 30 seconds, though. You guys mentioned Notre Dame, all they need to do is win, a win and they're in. DK, quickly here?
I think so.
Okay.
Keep an eye on Miami. What do they do to Pitt? If Miami blows out Pitt, I think it gets a little bit more complicated.
Chip, final word.
Notre Dame is win and in. I would say the same as for Oklahoma, the same as for Alabama, the same as for Oregon. 4 teams currently on the bubble, but if they win, they're in.
Okay. Thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports Network.
Well, I was going to say. That's what I would say with all of Miami especially. I'm a big backer. I think Miami should get the edge over Notre Dame, but they better win at Pittsburgh this weekend.
It's also feast week in college basketball. Coming up top of the hour here, we do have Tulsa and Northern Iowa combined 11-1, so keep it right here on CBSSN. A reminder about the Cover 3 podcast. DK, Chip, Tom Fornelli, and Bud Elliott. Scan the QR code. They've got instant locks on Thursday, instant reaction Saturdays, and check them out on YouTube.